21 young Israelis die in a suicide bombing. American Jews turn on the peace process. Former Defense Minister Moshe Arens speaks for the Golan Heights. The 50th anniversary of Auschwitz's liberation. From the Jewish News Network, this is the JNN World News. Reporting from New York, Shelley Kaminer.
Good evening. I'm Shelley Kaminer, and here's what's happening. It was early Sunday morning, January 22nd, at the rural Beit Lit bus stop in central Israel. Young Israeli soldiers returning to their bases after spending the Jewish Sabbath at home with their families were waiting for their buses. Out of the blue, in two separate explosions, two Islamic Jihad suicide bombers blew themselves and 21 Israelis to smithereens. Body parts were everywhere. 21 were killed and more than 60 seriously injured. Victims were rushed to ambulances, but for most, it was too late. Most of the victims were under 21, boys and girls. The funerals, clogged with their young friends, were somber affairs, with friends and family in states of shock. The number of Jews killed since the signing of the Rabin-Arafat Accord has now reached 122, including the Israeli security guard killed in Gaza on February 6. The Islamic Jihad suicide bombers came from Gaza. In Gaza, thousands of Arabs streamed to the streets joyfully praising the terrorists.
I'm very proud what he did.
Jubilation was everywhere in Gaza, with Palestinian Arab newspapers, radio, and TV applauding the suicide bombing. When I saw the flesh and blood of the Jews, I was happy. And the Islamic movement gives its condolences to the hero of the attack that led to the killing of 20 pigs and the injuring of 60 monkeys were typical of the statements emanating from Gaza. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin addressed the nation, trying to calm the situation. This did nothing to quell the widespread protests on Israel's streets with signs declaring Arafat as a murderer. Water cannons and truncheons were the favored methods used by Israeli police to break up the demonstrations. The Israeli government frequently has been resorting to force to stifle opposition and dissent.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Here in New York, on February 6, 200 American Jews braved snow and severely frigid temperatures to express their frustration with the Israeli government's policies.
But the fact of the matter is that Shimon Peres refuses to run to the home of Oprah Felix and to the many who were murdered at Beit Lit. He lacks the angst. He doesn't feel the pain of our people. He was asked recently, "What are your dreams?" He said, "My dream is to become Secretary General of the United Nations." Give me a break.
Peres, from Israel, is at the Waldorf Astoria, and he's getting an award for peace, when in fact Israelis and Jews are being killed by the PLO and Islamic fundamentalists. And it's not peace, it's not a peace process, it's a war.
It's important that the Jewish people in Israel see that the Jewish people here in the States care, and as much as we can do here for the people there.
The Americans were protesting Foreign Minister Shimon Peres' appearance at the Waldorf Astoria, where he was being honored at a black-tie dinner. Earlier, at a meeting of the Conference of Presidents, Peres said his ultimate ambition in life is to become Secretary General of the United Nations. Peres had no answer when asked why he was not supporting a move by Republicans in Congress to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognize the city as Israel's capital. Likud Party Chairman Benjamin Netanyahu had this to say about the rampant terrorism.
Since the signing of the deal with the PLO, 100 Israelis have been killed, almost triple the number that were killed in the previous year. So this agreement to stop terrorism has produced more terrorism, an explosion of terrorism, most of which emanating from Gaza, which has now become a terrorist haven under PLO umbrella. The Islamic terrorists emerged from Gaza. kill Israelis in Tel Aviv or downtown Jerusalem, come back to Gaza, and they're unmolested. Arafat doesn't touch them. Arafat is not apprehended to date, including in the last 2 days in the riots. He's not apprehended a single killer, a single perpetrator. The Israeli security services every day give the PLO lists of people, nothing.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Rabin has been meeting frequently with PLO chief Yasser Arafat. On both January 19 and February 9th, Rabin and Arafat met in Gaza, where the Prime Minister reaffirmed his support for the PLO deal and gave his commitments that no Jewish communities would be built in the territories. They also spoke of extending PLO rule throughout Judea and Samaria. In early February, Yitzhak Rabin met in Cairo with Egyptian President Mubarak, Jordan's King Hussein, and PLO head Arafat in a joint summit. Israel was subjected to heavy pressure to stop Jewish construction everywhere in the territories and around Jerusalem and agree to a Palestinian state. Israel also came under massive pressure by Egypt on the subject of nuclear weapons.
8 Arab states have taken a united stand against Israel's refusal to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Egypt, Syria, and 6 Gulf states said exempting Israel from nuclear inspections is incompatible with Middle East peace. Israel has never signed the treaty, and the Arabs have taken the opportunity to lobby against the special nuclear status Israel has acquired.
Dan Meridor was Israel's justice minister in the last Likud government. He's a member of the Knesset and considered a top young Likud leader. Howard Barbanel interviewed him last week.
We're here with Dan Meridor, former Justice Minister of the State of Israel and former Cabinet Secretary under the administration of Menachem Begin. Mr. Meridor, there's a lot of talk about the peace process unraveling, about the PLO not being able to live up to its commitments. What's the Likud take on that?
We always thought the PLO is not the right partner, not only because they are terrorists, but because they will not be able to deliver any agreement any Israeli can live with. Now, a year and a half almost after the Oslo Agreement was signed, I think we can see that they did not deliver on the main undertakings they've taken with this government. They did not change the charter, which is a very bad indication to what their real meaning and intentions are, and they did not stop or even try to stop terrorism. That being the case, I think the government's assumption that the PLO can deliver was found totally unfounded.
What can be done, or what would you do in a new Likud government to put a clamp on the escalating terrorism that's been rising since the Oslo Accords?
Admittedly, it's very hard to guarantee 100% success in no terrorist activity. There have been terrorist activities downtown Manhattan, the Twin Towers. There have been terrorist activities in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. All those years when prime ministers and defense ministers were Likud or Labour and others. Having said that, however, there is much that can be done to minimize terrorist dangers. One thing is not to give them hope that they will succeed. Saying, as this government did, that we talk only to those who shoot, to the enemies, not to those who talk to us nicely, may objectively encourage people to go for shootings rather than for talking. Second, I think it is important that the Arabs in Judea and Samaria don't get the impression that we are on the leaving process, because if that's what they think, they will not cooperate with us. And when you don't have information, you cannot fight terrorism. Now I'm afraid they think that we are on the way out. Being on the way out will make it much more difficult to have intelligence. With no intelligence, it's more difficult to fight. You have to be resolved in your fight against terrorism. You have to be accurate. You don't punish a whole population. You punish the people who are involved in terrorism. You are harsh with them and nice with the other guys. That's the way to fight terrorism. We have done it in the past. We can do it in the future.
On the issue of Jerusalem, there's a lot of concern about the PLO's operations out of Orient House. Would the Likud be handling the Jerusalem issue any differently than is currently being done?
Yes, I suppose there are two things that have to be done about Jerusalem. One is a negative thing and one is a positive thing. Positive is to go on building the Jewish Jerusalem, not minimizing or not inflicting any harm on the Arabs there. They have a right to live there and we should treat them very nicely. as citizens of Jerusalem. But we should build on and on, so to be very clear that Jerusalem is indivisible, even physically, demographically. And the second thing is we should, on the negative side, so to speak, we should be very clear about what we don't allow the Arabs to do. No political activity as of the Palestinian government should be allowed in Jerusalem. Orient House as a house can stay, but activity of calling diplomats, holding sessions of the Palestinian organizations shouldn't be allowed there, and it's not allowed under the agreement. The government, unfortunately, doesn't do anything. If we come back to power, we make clear that Jerusalem is not for sale, and the Arabs don't think it now, unfortunately.
On the issue of the Golan Heights, Rabin has promised either a referendum or new elections or something of that kind if faced with a substantial or total withdrawal from the region. What is the Likud doing, and what is the Likud strategy to win either that referendum or the elections?
Likud goes on saying what both Likud and Rabin said for many years, that going down from the Golan, even in peace terms, is very, very dangerous. We want to make clear to the people what they are voting on, whether by plebiscite or by elections. That it's not only the question of whether we have a treaty with Syria or not, but the question is the price of the treaty, the conditions of the treaty, the terms in the treaty. And it's important to have an agreement where Israel is strong enough to make the other side keep it. If we rely only on the Arab or Syrian willingness to keep their commitments, we may find ourselves, God forbid, in the situation of Kuwait, who had a wonderful Arab League agreement with Iraq, only it looked weak. We have 20 years of quiet border with Syria, not because the Syrians love us, but because we are strong enough and we are on the Golan Heights. We don't think it's right to go on with the present government policies, offering the whole of the Golan Heights, and I hope the Israeli public will understand it, although there's going to be a big diplomatic, democratic Hasbara fight in Israel about the Golan Heights when time comes to vote on it in a referendum or in elections.
Mr. Meridor, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
When we come back, an exclusive interview with Moshe Arens. Please stay with us.
The best teen tour this summer and the best college tour this summer is the Beitar Israel Experience. And the heart of every Beitar program is the Israel Experience, which is the only way we can describe it, since the word tour just doesn't do it justice. From the moment we land, we'll see, hear, taste, feel, and experience everything that Israel has to offer. We'll be staying and seeing everything, including the northern coast, the Galilee, and the Golan, Jerusalem, 5,000 years of Jewish heritage, the Mediterranean coast, touring cosmopolitan Tel Aviv and the ancient port of Jaffa, the south and Eilat and the Negev, and of course our final week of fun and color war. Beitar, your Israel summer experience. Groups for bar and bat mitzvah, teens, and college students. Call Beitar today. 212-650-1231. 212-650-1231.
לא די לשאת מילים על רמת הגולן. יש לממש אותם בבנייה, בתעסוקה. לא יעלה על הדעת שגם בשלום נרד מרמת הגולן. מי שיעלה על הדעת לרדת מרמת הגולן יפקיר את ביטחון ישראל. אנא, כולנו יחד, בואו נשקיע כאן. כך בלבד נממש את מחויבותנו לרמת הגולן. ולכם המתיישבים, אתם העושים את רמת הגולן למה שהיא. כל הכבוד לכם.
The Gaza-based Islamic Jihad is backed by Syria, who also supports the Hezbollah, or Party of God terrorists, operating from South Lebanon. South Lebanon saw plenty of action last month, with many terrorist attacks against Israeli and South Lebanese troops. Several soldiers were killed, and many others wounded in constant fighting in Lebanon. Meanwhile, secret negotiations are taking place in Washington between Israel and Syria. The Syrians are demanding a total Israeli withdrawal from the strategically important Golan Heights, and the Israeli government seems willing to agree. This despite Israeli public opinion polls consistently against the government's plans. A new poll by the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies at Bar Ilan University shows 62% of Israelis oppose a Golan withdrawal, even for full peace, with only 23% supporting it. Moreover, 69% of Israelis oppose the stationing of American troops on the Golan to monitor or secure any agreement with Syria. Joining us today is Brigadier General Uzi Keren. General Keren fought on the Golan Heights in both the 1967 and 1973 wars. He's a member of the Labour Party and lives at Kibbutz En Gev at the foot of the heights. Welcome, General.
Good evening, Shelley.
General, you fought twice for the Golan. Is that why the area is so important to you?
Yeah, it's very important of many questions. We call it essential area, and you cannot defend Israel without the Golan.
Can Israel really be secure without the Golan?
Of course, you cannot do it. As I told you before, the mountains there, the distance to Damascus and everything is very important for the security of Israel, and I don't believe that we can do it. Of course, it's a question of taking risk, but I am not believe that we have to take the risk.
You're a member of the Labour Party and live on a kibbutz. Are there many people in Labour who oppose Prime Minister Rabin's plans to give up the whole Golan?
I don't know if many people, but there is some people which are going in the same program which was based by Rabin himself, and now he changed his mind, and we are not going to change our mind.
Can Syria's President Hafez Assad be trusted?
I don't trust him. I don't trust his rules. One-man decision rules is you cannot never trust him.
What will the Golan residents be doing in the coming months to fight the government's plans?
We have many plans. One of them is campaign for changing the law of the Golan. The second one is campaign of the security, to explain everybody what is mean security of the Golan Heights. And another some program which are still secret, and all of them have cost a lot of money. And we are going to do it. We don't want to leave the Golan.
General Keren, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Moshe Arens was Israel's former defense minister. Howard Barbanel caught up with him last week while here promoting his new book, Broken Covenant.
We're here with Moshe Arens, former Minister of Defense, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, and former U.S. Ambassador to the United States. Mr. Arens was a key and pivotal player in both the Begin and the Shamir governments. Mr. Arens, thank you very much for joining us. And first off, I'd like to know, what is your overall assessment of what's going on the Golan Heights, and do you think there's a problem with the government's policy?
The government's policy on the Golan Heights, as it is best understood in Israel, I think also in Damascus and in Washington, is that Israel is prepared to turn the entire Golan Heights over to the Syrians, to the Syrian dictator, Hafez al-Assad. That's a big problem. I think that's a mistake of catastrophic proportion. And we've only been lucky so far in that Assad has not been ready to make the kind of moves that would be acceptable to the Israeli government, and that the Israeli government would feel would be palatable to the Israeli public. But it could happen any day.
Why exactly would it be catastrophic for the Israeli government to initiate a full or a majority withdrawal from the Golan Heights?
To that, because for the past 27 years, every visitor of any importance that has come to Israel was taken up to the Golan Heights so that he could see for himself that it was essential for Israel's defense. It is an area that overlooks all of the northern part of Israel. It was an area from which the Syrians fired into Israeli towns and villages while it was under Syrian control. We suffered a great many casualties in taking control of the area, and most Israelis simply do not want to think of the possibility of being under the Syrian guns again.
do you believe that even if the Syrians sign a full peace treaty with Israel, full diplomatic relations, full recognition, demilitarization, that Syria can be trusted under those circumstances? And do you also, what is your feelings about U.S. troops on the Golan Heights?
You have to remember who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a dictatorial regime. You're dealing with Assad, who's one of the cruelest, aggressive, reckless dictators that we know. He's rivaled only by Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And I think it's ludicrous to put any kind of trust into whatever commitment he eventually decides to make, or because of that trust to decide to give up Israel's defenses. Now, the presence of U.S. troops in the Golan Heights would serve as no compensation at all. It could only endanger and make more complicated the U.S.-Israeli relationship.
What can be done in Israel, or what is being done to stop the government from taking unilateral action? It seems as though to observers here that the government is not very much concerned with public opinion or public opinion polls. What can or should or will be done to try to keep the Golan in Israeli hands?
Has been pursuing its policy in total disregard of Israeli public opinion. I think probably unprecedented in Israel's history or in the history of any democratic country that a government would take measures so far-reaching, knowing that at least 50%, probably even the majority of the population, was opposed to their policy. We're trying to drum up as much support for the Golan as we can, in order to impress the Rabbi and the government that it simply will not be accepted, will not be acceptable to the vast majority of the Israeli public. There was a long hunger strike that attracted a lot of attention by people from the Committee for the Golan Heights. There are public meetings, there are advertisements in the press, and we're hoping that all that will have the desired effect.
The recent terrorist explosion at the Beit Lid junction was carried out by Islamic Jihad, and it's been revealed that Islamic Jihad is backed heavily by the Syrians. Their headquarters is in Damascus. What about Syrian support for terrorism and narcotics trafficking?
As one of the terrorist states in the Middle East, together with Iraq and Libya and Iran, and there's no question about it, Syria is on the list of terrorist states that the U.S. State Department publishes. The Syrian dictator has been responsible for a series of terrorist acts over the years. They're denying it, I think, is totally useless and transparent. It behooves us all to take the necessary efforts to stop all that. Narcotics trade is part of what they're doing. There's a great deal of corruption in the Syrian ruling establishment, and some of the money comes from the narcotics trade.
Is there concern on your part on the government's moves and hints and teases about the ultimate status of Jerusalem?
The Rabin government, we are concerned about the government, its members, and its policies in all direction. We simply have no confidence or trust in this government, or many of the people in Israel do not. By the way, if Rabin had said in the elections what he's saying now as Prime Minister, he never would have been elected. You know, though he says today that Jerusalem, of course, must remain united, seeing all the other turnabouts that he's made in other areas, we're not so sure about Jerusalem either.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for joining us today. This is Howard Barbanel reporting from New York. Back to you, Shelley.
When we come back, we look at the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Please stay with us. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has for the first time eliminated several key spots from the itinerary of visiting foreign leaders. First to go was Masada, followed by the Golan Heights, and finally, the Yad Vashem Holocaust Museum and Memorial in Jerusalem. Deputy Foreign Minister Yossi Beilin said he didn't want to impose where visiting dignitaries should go, but most opposition leaders see this as a retreat from emphasizing security issues. Sheva Weiss, Speaker of the Israeli Parliament, and an Auschwitz survivor said, "You can't understand Israel without the Holocaust." Jews everywhere have been outraged over the decision. It was a gray, snowy day 50 years ago on January 27th that the Soviet forces liberated the remaining 7,500 starving souls left at Auschwitz. More than 1.2 million Jews were exterminated at the 3 Auschwitz camps. with almost 500,000 gassed and cremated in 1944 alone. It is the largest killing field of Jews in Europe, designed and implemented by this man, Adolf Eichmann, head of the SS machine charged with the final solution to the Jewish problem. Here is how one of the survivors remember her arrival at the camp.
The sky was red, like here in the Yad Vashem, when the 6 lights were burning from the crematoriums, because it was now the crematoriums working day and night, day and night. We didn't see sky in the sky, stars, just red, and we felt the smell of burning flesh.
6 million Jews were killed in Germany's war against the Jews. 1 million were children. Pope John Paul II, in marking the Auschwitz anniversary, declared that in particular the children of the Jewish people, for whom the Nazi regime had planned a systematic extermination, suffered the dramatic experience of the Holocaust. He added, "Let us pray and work so that this doesn't happen. Never again anti-Semitism, never again genocides." On behalf of everyone here at JNN, we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. If you'd like a copy of this program or more information, an address and phone number will be following shortly. For everyone at JNN, I'm Shelley Kaminer. Have a good night.